Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes have difficult challenges ahead of them, and one of them is successfully implementing the new design of the W14 in the middle of the season. With Mercedes failing to capitalise on the no-pod sidepod design for the second consecutive season, there comes a time where a team must own their mistakes and see what can be done better for the future, which is exactly what Mercedes did. However, Hamilton doesn't believe that the team are headed in the right direction, and from his words, it seems like they'll take a different road than expected on their new sidepods. After the 2022 fiasco and the deepening of the troublesome yet innovative design of the W13, the 2023 Challenger showed to be one that proved too big of an issue for Mercedes. Even though its old nemesis, the porpoising, is now long gone, that doesn't mean that all of Mercedes' issues have gone away with it. Quite the contrary, the car now struggles with increased drag and reduced stability, and according to Hamilton, that's all to be pinpointed to a specific element of the W14's design. But apart from that, something that we'll cover later in this video, Hamilton is also very dissatisfied with the team's choice to copy Red Bull's sidepod design. If there's one thing that has proven to be a very unsuccessful tactic in Formula One, it's copying other teams' designs. And not too long ago, Mercedes was the side that was copied by Racing Point, now known as Aston Martin. Just a couple of years forward and we have Aston Martin out-developing and outperforming Mercedes, and now the Silver Arrows are pushed against a wall so much that they're considering copying other teams' designs. Two things that will definitely present themselves as a huge challenge in this mission are the budget cap restrictions and the development rate, with the latter one presenting a huge trouble for Hamilton as well. The seven-time world champion spoke about how he feels if Mercedes just decides to copy Red Bull's sidepod design, one that has made the 2022 and 2023 cars so dominant and hard to catch up at the front, and his response was anything but positive. When talking about this matter, Hamilton said, "I think we have what we have, and we're going to continue to try to work on it and extract more from it, and we'll see how quick that can happen, or whether that's possible with the concept we have. And then in the short term, we'll start to find out whether or not we've got to make loads of big, drastic changes. I mean, there are drastic changes, which we will do." People keep talking about getting the new sidepods on the car, but it's not as simple as that. You put the Red Bull sidepods on our car and it won't change a thing. It literally won't change a thing. It might even go slower. It's about aero characteristics. It's how the car is balanced through the corners. Yet again, we don't have to take a long trip back in history to see how copying the sidepod design won't be the solution to unlocking that extra bit of performance, with Aston Martin copying Red Bull's sidepod design in Barcelona in 2022, and then finishing both the qualifying and the race very poorly. The downforce generation of a car is now mostly through the floor of the car, which doesn't necessarily mean it's the only important part of the new generation cars. But if you compare Red Bull's floor to everyone else's, you'll notice a dramatic difference in the complexity of the design. After Hamilton called out Mercedes for not listening to him when they should have, as he won 7 championships and he knows what a car needs and what it doesn't, he just doesn't seem to take digs at his team for being stubborn and going with a design that just hasn't shown any kind of results. Although he reflected that he may have chosen the wrong words and reiterated his desire to stay with the team before his contract expires at the end of this season, Hamilton says that it feels good to say that he was in the right, as he went on to elaborate, "I'm one of those people that always likes to be right, but I'm not always right. But in this scenario, I was right. So it was good. It was like, I told you." It's a team collaboration. At the end of the day, I'm the driver, not the designer, but I'm the gateway to the car's performance. So we're just working on continuously trusting each other in what we try to give back. They do listen to me. I mean, look at the success we've had over time. So we listen to each other. We've had our disagreements, and that's inevitable in relationships. But Mercedes is definitely planning on returning to podium finishes, and the fact that Russell was sniffing one in Jeddah, with him even getting a little taste of it before the FIA changed their minds for the second time in a couple of hours, gives hope that Mercedes can be competitive throughout the 2023 season. Remember, last year Hamilton wasn't even able to exit Q1, and now he finished 4th after qualifying 8th and starting one place ahead, with Leclerc taking the engine penalty. The tactics worked wonders for Mercedes, but there's still one thing that Hamilton doesn't like about the car: the current lack of rear downforce. One issue that the car had in 2022 was that it had too much of a rear end, meaning that the bottoming out and the porpoising were much more aggravated thanks to this factor alone. But on the other hand, when the team worked on solutions for these issues, they seem to have overworked themselves a bit, and the end result was a car that has a much stronger front end. It seems like the front-end car suits Russell much better than Hamilton, although the young Briton has also expressed his concern about the W14's competitiveness, urging the team to do a better job back at Brackley with the new design and finally be able to rack up more wins to his profile. And Hamilton was also very precise when talking about the rear-end downforce missing, with him pinpointing this particular piece of the concept that just makes him feel not connected to the car at all. As he went on to elaborate, "We're a long way down on downforce, so we've got to pick up the rear-end downforce particularly. The more rear we gain, the more stable the rear becomes. The more confident I'll be able to attack. But I think in general, just this car, even if we do change that, there's a specific thing with something on the car that I've never had before. It's a position I've not had in previous years' cars. For me, it's the thing that's making me uncomfortable. I've just got to work hard to make sure it's changed. It's on a knife edge when you're above about 95%, but when you're in a race stint, it's much more controllable and predictable." It's very clear that both Hamilton and Russell prefer other setups during the race, and recently Hamilton was left wondering as to how Russell's setup turned out so good for the young Briton, so much that he almost got to the podium finish and was able to close the gap to Alonso to just 5 seconds. Nonetheless, even though we were the last ones that want to put far-fetched scenarios out there, Wolff himself said at this point of Hamilton's career, it's evident that he needs to look at all of the options that are available to him, and now that Mercedes has shown that they don't have a championship-winning car in their hands, Hamilton could continue his voyage somewhere else. Even though Ferrari is now behind Mercedes in terms of race pace, as Sainz wasn't able to finish ahead of the Mercedes drivers, even though he qualified ahead of them, we do wonder what Ferrari can do in the hands of the right driver, like Hamilton. In general, Hamilton is known as a loyal driver and a driver that always commits to the team whenever things get tough. But now that his colleague has proven to be a much more reliable driver and one that's able to outperform a car that isn't at 100% of its potential, it's definitely going to be an interesting situation to follow. With Mercedes fully committing to the W14's new concept, Hamilton's dominance isn't guaranteed, even if the car shows to be able to fight up front with Red Bull and Aston Martin. With this in mind, and with the fact that Mercedes didn't listen to Hamilton when they had the chance to do so, we are yet to see whether and how long Hamilton will commit to Mercedes, and if they're able to fight for the championship yet again. What are your thoughts on Hamilton's take on the W14? Do you think that he has all the right to leave the team at this point, as they don't listen to him when they should? Let us know in the comments below.